I mean, both decks are capable of doing extremely powerful things. I mean, the Heartless Eldrazi deck, I mean, it's got 4 Ulamogs. That is no joking matter. He's planning on getting these Ulamogs onto the table frequently and maybe even early. So that's going to be the really big, powerful punch that the Heartless Eldrazi deck can do. On the other side, though, the Blue-Red Twin deck, I mean, we've seen this time and time again. It can provide a little bit of disruption on the opening turns and then combo you out with Splinter Twin.
So it looks like Rich was on the play, just led with a Scalding Tarn and pass. Jacob Baugh is going to go ahead and swamp along with a Thoughtseize and take a look at a hand. It has goodies in it. We have a Misty Rainforest, a Vending Click, a Pestromite, a Lightning Bolt, and 2 copies of Splinter Twin.
Yeah, and this really highlights the strength of Thoughtseize. If Rich Cali was left with this hand, he'd kind of have a good mix of cards. And the Thoughtseize taking away, I think it's going to be taking away the Pestromite, but that is going to leave him stranded with 2 Splinter Twins that basically do nothing without that Pestromite. So really, really highlighting the power of Thoughtseize, being able to look at your opponent's hand, pick a hole in it, and use that information for the subsequent turns and possibly exploit something else.
Absolutely. And in a deck like Jacob's, Thoughtseize and Inquisition are both so important because those are really the only way that he has to interact with his opponents early on. He does have some removal spells, Go for the Throat, Slaughter Pact, Dismember, but Thoughtseize and Inquisition are really what he's wanting to have to bridge the gap between doing nothing and dropping his fatties.
Yeah, it's also really important too because both of these decks are decks that are really focused on having a way to win the game. They're a little light on disruption, and so getting 1 or 2 disruption pieces early on is really going to set the pace for the subsequent turns, and those subsequent turns, each player could be throwing out haymakers.
So Rich Cali just went ahead and played a Mystery Enforced and passed. Jacob Baugh has an Eldrazi Temple and a Heartless Summoning. Rich Cali is going to miss his 3rd land drop and pass back to Jacob Baugh, and he has a whole bunch of mana available to him. And as we see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, an Oblivion Sower on turn 3.
Yeah, this is no laughing matter. This is going to make Jacob's mana basically explode. I mean, he's got 2 extra lands, and now he's going to be able to come out with an even bigger fatty next turn. And this really highlights how powerful this Heartless Summoning can be. I mean, without it, he just wouldn't have had this draw.
So we saw Jacob was able to get 2 lands off of that Oblivion Sower trigger and cast another Heartless Summoning. And let's do a quick check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He can cast Ulamog next turn on turn 4.
Not too shabby. Yeah, really impressive stuff. And I mean, the fact that the Ulamog is going to come into play slightly smaller is no big deal. And the fact that he can play it and possibly exile both of Rich Cali's lands, that would just be the nail in the coffin for this game.
Now it looks like Rich went ahead and remanded that 2nd copy of Heartless Summoning, fetching for an island and then using his Scalding Tarn for black mana since there isn't Urborg on the battlefield. It's a little interesting that he didn't do that against the Oblivion Sower, since it's going to put a clock on him, but I can't blame him. Like, he's just going to recast it and get some more lands.
Yeah, I mean, the Oblivion Sower, it gets its trigger when you cast it, so he's going to get... Wow.
There's Ulamog still. So we've got an Eye of Ugin, and a turn 4 Ulamog still.
Oh man, well this is one way to start the day.
Yeah. Triggers?
Yeah, don't want to forget that. I
mean, man. You know what? I think I have 4 copies of Heartless Summoning in my collection at home. I'm pretty happy about that.
We might as well bring up the sideboard now.
Wow. All right, so as we saw there, Heartless Summoning alongside Eldrazi Temple, and Eye of Ugin was able to power out a turn 4 Ulamog after a turn 3 Oblivion Sower.
That was really, really impressive. I mean, you really got to see a good display of just what the Heartless Eldrazi deck is trying to do. I mean, he had multiple lands that produced multiple pieces of mana, and then he had the Heartless Summonings, which were basically almost like, 2 mana each turn. So you really got to see how he gained a lot of mana and then how he leveraged that for some really powerful plays that locked up the game.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboards here and see if we can figure out what a plan's going to be. So for Jacob Baugh, he does have 3 Disfigure, 1 Slaughter Pact, 1 Damnation, 2 copies of Drown in Sorrow, a Ratchet Bomb, a Memoricide, 2 Cranial Extraction, a Knight of Soul's Betrayal, and 3 copies of Vampiric Link. What do you think he's going to go with there?
So a lot of decks have Slaughter Pact on their sideboard specifically for Twin, so I definitely think that's going to come in. Ratchet Bomb also has some utility when trying to fight off the combo. And another card that I have to imagine he's going to be looking to bring in is Memoricide. Just because you can cast it and just, get rid of all the Splinter Twins from the opponent's deck. Knight of Souls Betrayals, again, another card that has a lot of utility against the twin deck. Basically, all their creatures are either 1 power or 1 toughness. So Knight of Souls Betrayal being a card that can give all creatures on the battlefield -1/-1 is going to be also really good.
So do you think Memoricide's better than Cranial Extraction?
Well,
Like you just get to play around the Arcane Hate? Got to counter the Arcane spells?
Not sure.
Rich Cali with his Blue-Ed Splinter Twin. He does have 1 Engineered Explosives, 2 Blood Moon, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Pyroclasm, 2 copies of Pian Kiran Nalar, which is quickly becoming just a modern staple. 1 Negate, 1 Izzet Staticaster, 1 Jace Architect of Thought, 1 Kuranos God of Storms, a Roast, and a Dispel. What do you think Rich has got going on?
Well, first of all, I read Cranial Extraction on Surgical Extraction.
Fair enough.
So that's why there's that mix-up. But for Rich Cali's side, the cards that I think that he'll bring in are the Blood Moon has some utility, as it does against a lot of these big mana decks. It's not quite the nail in the coffin because Jacob is gonna, if he sneaks out a Heartless Summoning before the Blood Moon, he can still just hit a lot of land drops and cast his stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about Jacob's deck is it kind of helps shore up that Blood Moon weakness that he had last week.
Yeah, for sure. And then Rich may also want to bring in a Gate just to help protect his combo. He can counter a Thoughtseize. And then you might want to bring in Dispel, but I believe that the only thing you'd really be worried about is probably Slaughter Pact. So I think Rich Cali's not actually going to be doing a whole lot of sideboarding. He kind of want to keep sort of a mix of combo pieces and disruption, and he doesn't want to go into a full control plan because he's not really set up to control the Eldrazi deck. He just wants to disrupt it enough, knock it off its center, and then combo out before the Eldrazi deck lands something like an Ulamog.
Sounds good. Now, before our players start playing, let's quickly just take a look at our regionals playmat. We do have regionals coming up here in a couple weeks during the Oath of the Gatewatch Pro Tour, and you can get this fabulous playmat absolutely free for playing the Ascent of Aya. Go.starcitygames.com/regionals to get all the details on where the regionals are in your area so that you can pre-register. Again, this is free and exclusive playmat and token for only the first 200 players, so make sure you pre-register so that you can get that locked in. Because I don't know about you guys, but I want to get as many of these playmats as possible because they're gorgeous.
Yeah, these are definitely one of the nicest playmats that we've had so far. I mean, I've got a lot of playmats at home. I give a lot of them away to friends. If I get my hand on one of these, I'm going to hold on to it.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and hop back to our match. I believe our players are ready to play. So let's see what's going on here. So we've got a Steam Vents tapped from Rich on his first turn. Jacob Baugh with an Eldrazi Temple on his first turn. Rich is just going to play a Sulphur Falls and pass. I imagine he's probably sitting on some number of remand. Now that he's on the play instead of being on the draw, he might have a little more action against this Heartless Summoning. Yeah,
I mean, Rich Cali, really what he wants to do is just sort of trade his mana for his opponent's mana. But he's not getting the opportunity to do that so far.
So Jacob is just going to play another Eldrazi Temple and pass. Rich is going to go ahead and play a Scalding Tarn and
I believe that was during his opponent's upkeep.
Use a Deceiver Exarch to tap down an Eldrazi Temple during his upkeep, which is very good because it looks like he potentially could have cast an Oblivion Sower this turn if he had enough of those double lands.
Wow, yeah, really, really powerful. Also a really good heads-up play on Rich Cali's part. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of interaction for the Eldrazi deck, and so having an opportunity to choke him off on mana a little bit is really good.
So we just got a Swamp and a Go for the Throat from Jacob Baugh. Is going to take care of that Deceiver Exarch and make it so that he's not going to be able to get comboed out if Rich happened to have a fourth land and a Splinter Twin. Rich is just going to play a Scalding Tarn and then cast another Tapper in his upkeep and tap down Jacob Baugh's Eldrazi Temple.
And Rich Cali probably knows that Jacob doesn't have enough removal to kill every single Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch that comes into play. So he can kind of just run them out there, get in a little chip damage, and open up the possibility to not only combo his opponent out, but also potentially burn him out if he can get his life total low enough.
So Rich has gone ahead and just attacked for 2 with his Pestermite. He shocked himself to play his Ancient Grudge. So it looks like he's going to be tapping another land down with a Deceiver Exarch, and he's leaving up 2 mana, I have to imagine, for something like Remand.
Yeah, and you can really see the humble beats that the blue-red twin deck can do. They don't seem like a lot, a 1-power creature and a 2-power creature, but if nothing else is really going on in the game that prevents them from dealing damage or the other player winning, that damage starts to add up over time, and just it takes a Snapcaster and a Lightning Bolt to finish things off quick.
Absolutely. So Jacob Baugh's gone ahead and played an Eye of Ugin for his turn. He does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available to him for an Eldrazi. So he could potentially just try an Oblivion Sower here, but that might be a little risky. Once he taps out, that can open the window for Rich Cali to try and combo him out if he doesn't happen to have something like Slaughter Pact to stop it.
Yeah, it seems like Jacob has, I have to imagine he's got quite a few options here, and it seems like he's really respecting the potential for a combo because he's not actually using any of his mana this turn and looking to set himself up for hopefully a more powerful play on the next turn.
So Rich has gone ahead and drawn for his turn. He's going to use his Scalding Tarn and get a basic island, and then just go to his combat step and beat in with his small blue creatures.
Yep, the mediocre beats keep coming in. They don't seem like much, but they add up.
They do add up. And once you start to get into that 6-9 range, Snapcaster Mage and Lightning Bolt ends the game fairly quickly. And here we have that Blood Moon out of the sideboard of Rich Cali.
Yeah, now this is really great. I mean, Jacob essentially would have had access to, I believe, 8 mana on his turn. But with this Blood Moon, it chops it down all the way down to 5.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
like a triple Stone Rain.
Yeah, that's an impactful Blood Moon. And Jacob doesn't really have a board either. Sometimes the risk of playing a card like Blood Moon is you spend your turn putting this enchantment onto the board, and that can be a bit of a loss of tempo. And if your opponent's ahead of you, they can really leverage that. Even though you've locked off their mana, they just may have a better board. But in this case, Jacob has no board, and this Blood Moon can kind of be cast with impunity.
Absolutely. So Jacob here is just going to play another land, cast a Heartless Summoning, which will help him get back up to that point where the mana is going to be relevant. And here we see a Cranial Extraction. I imagine it's going to be naming Splinter Twin.
Yeah.
It looks like it did name Splinter Twin. Now Rich is going to reveal a hand with a Negate, a Dispel, and what looks like another land.
I think that's might be an Electrolyze.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Is it a foil?
Looks
Yeah,
like it is a foil
Electrolyze.
Electrolyze. So Rich does have 2 islands at his disposal, but Jacob now can be completely fearless. He does not have to worry about being comboed. And once he gets to the point where he can start casting his spells, he can just start slamming them down. So he does have, it appeared he had some number of Oblivion Sowers in his hand, and he does appear to have 6 lands on the battlefield, which will more than likely turn into more lands with that Oblivion Sower. And at some point, I imagine we're going to see an Ulamog. Now that Rich Cali is not able to Splinter Twin Jacob out of this game, Big Daddy Ulamog is just free to tear up everything.
Yeah, and I also, for the sequencing on Jacob's turn, I really, really like that. I mean, he cast the Heartless Summoning first as a test spell, and then after it got countered, then he cast his Cranial Extraction.
Absolutely. So Rich Cali is just going to go ahead and play a land and pass the turn. Jacob's drawn. It looks like he hit another land. I imagine he's trying to figure out if Bojuka Bog still exiles Rich's
Sounds like
graveyard.
a good judge call.
I don't believe it does. But we are still going to get an Oblivion Sower here. Like
that would have been a great sequence if, I don't know how many lands are in his graveyard, but there's some nice synergy between Bojuka Bog and
Oblivion Sower.
Oblivion Sower.
Absolutely. It's going to miss on lands. But Jacob is still going to go up to 7 lands. He does still have that Heartless Summoning in his turn, so he very easily could just play the Heartless Summoning and then hit it land number 8, and that would allow him to cast Ulamog. And it looks like he has 2 copies in his hand.
And even though this Winnower didn't hit any extra lands, it's still a big body. I mean, the blue-red twin deck has really no answer for it. Sometimes these decks will play a Harvest Pyre.
Yeah, it looks like he does have a Harvest Pyre, which BBD used.
Yeah, and I mean, he's only got 1 of these, though. So, I mean, this 6/6 is quite the threat. And this is one of the reasons that some of the blue-red twin players prefer to splash black, because not only does it give you discard spells,
gives you also access to Terminate.
Exactly.
So it looks like Jacob was able to pick up another copy of Heartless Summoning for his turn. So it'll be interesting to see how exactly he goes about doing this. So he's going to cast another Oblivion Sower.
Wow.
Now he does get a land out of it, which is now going to allow him to cast that Heartless Summoning that's in his hand. I imagine it's going to get... Alright, so we've got a Spell Snare from Rich. It's going to take care of the Heartless Summoning.
And one thing that's nice about Heartless Summoning is it's a lot of mana accelerants one of the things that can really push them over the top is when you can cast them without having a tempo loss. And the Heartless Summonings, because they cost 2 and they essentially give you 2, the turn you cast them, it's almost like they're free if you have something to cast afterwards.
Absolutely. So Rich is just going to draw and pass for this turn. Jacob's going to go ahead and crash in with his 2 5/8s. He does have an Urborg, it looks like.
And we can really see how, without Splinter Twin, Rich Cali's deck just isn't really equipped to do a whole lot here. I mean, his deck, it's just some small creatures and some medium control elements, and he's just not equipped to actually control what the Heartless Eldrazi deck is doing.
And here we have Conduit of Ruin from Jacob. Now this is a 5/5 for 6 Eldrazi. When you cast him, you get to search your library for a colorless creature card with converted mana cost 7 or greater. It goes on top, and the first creature that you cast each turn is 2 less. So he didn't even need to cast the Ulamog that he had coming. He was just dead to what was on the battlefield. And this Heartless Eldrazi deck looks real nice.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty brutal, to be honest. I mean, Jacob really, he just had more mana than his opponent. He had more impactful cards. And, I mean, you know, Rich Cali's draws could have gone a little bit better, but Jacob really showcasing the power of his brew.
I mean, yeah, it looked real impressive against Blood Moon there.
Yeah.
The Blood Moon just didn't do anything. He was able to just cast his creatures like normal.
Yeah, I think that's one of the advantage of these Eldrazi decks, but also the Tron decks, is even if you Blood Moon them, you're not actually killing their lands.